my name is Sandra Apia and I am here today at the United Nations for its annual Africa Day celebration.
And we are here to celebrate.
To pay tribute to the co-sponsors.
We were prepared.
These are essential elements for Africa and for every country in the world.
May 25th of each year marks the anniversary of the Organization of African Unity, which was founded in 1963 with the aim of uniting all the independent African states. So join me as I talk to some of the UN officials, leaders, and ambassadors today about the importance of African unity. Reverend Jesse Jackson, the youth of Africa want to know from you, what role do you think they can play in the unification of Africa?
The most key role is to fight for the right to have a balanced diet and education. Because without the balanced diet, without drinkable water, one does not have the strength to get an education. But if one does get an education, strong minds break strong chains. Think about people like Julius Nyerere, people like Nelson Mandela. These were men who got an education and used their strength in Nkrumah, used the strength of their minds and being multilingual to communicate, to make things happen. So I want this generation not to get caught up in the frivolity of materialism, to see themselves as liberators, because the liberation of Africa is not over. We're free, but not equal. Beyond the skin color level of overcoming humiliation, our share of land and resources and trading has not yet been achieved. So we have work to be done. We have work to do.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Senator, today is all about African unity.
Yes.
Tell us, what do you think is the importance of Africa uniting?
Well, it's a matter of all of our survival in terms of our families, in terms of our children, especially that we reunite and bring all the talent and resources that we all have in order to not only make a better world for ourselves, but a better world for everybody. The world is waiting for Africa. Africa, there is so much talent, there is so much to give. So this a day of celebrating Africa is almost like recommitting ourselves to the promise that Africa has, not only for itself, but that Africa has for the world as well.
Awesome. Talking about that promise, what do you think a united Africa, how powerful do you think that can be?
Well, you know, if you just look at the raw resources that are in Africa, clearly they can provide the kind of economic development opportunities. That look at the raw resources in terms of the people. There's so much artistic and other cultural kinds of talent. If you look at the raw resources in terms of just the diaspora as well, not just Africa, the continent, but the diaspora as well, those other places all over the world where Africans live, and think about all that they're contributing in the places where they are. Imagine all of that coming together in terms of world causes, world needs, not just our own needs, which can be fulfilled if properly harnessed and directed, but we have so much more to contribute to the world as well. And so Africa today is the world tomorrow.
Awesome. Very well put. Looking into the future, what role do you think young Africans, the youth of Africa today, can play in that potential being realized?
Well, that's what I was talking about. It's all about y'all. It's all about the youth of Africa. They are the future, and they can play a political role, they can play a role in economics, they can play a role in the art and the culture. There's no role that you cannot play for the future of Africa and for the future of the world. And I think that we need to encourage it, we need to cultivate it, we sometimes need to step aside so that it can step up. And we look forward to mentoring and facilitating the development of all of our African youth, whether they be 1 year old or 100 years old.
So Africa Day, tell us about it. What do you think is the importance of this celebration?
Africa Day is about the celebration of the islands of hope.
for Africa. That we know that there are wars going on in Africa, that we know that there are natural disasters going on in Africa, but at the same time there are many, many positive developments in Africa that we want the international community to know about. So as you can see, there has been tremendous mobilization of Africans, of people of African descent from the Americas, from the Caribbean, from all over the world to say, yes, Africa is the continent of not only tomorrow, but Africa is the continent of today.
What role do you think the youth of Africa today can play in making this potential of Africa being realized?
The role of the youth of Africa is crucial because the youth are the leaders not just of tomorrow, but they're the leaders of today. They are the ones in whose hands lies the future of Africa, and I have seen very, very strong young people, young women, young men who have got tremendous sense of organization and method, who have continue to move the continent forward.
Okay. Lastly, a united Africa, how powerful do you think that can be?
A united Africa is a reality because we have now the African Union having declared the diaspora as the sixth region of Africa. And we are working now towards not only African Renaissance, but towards the building of the United States of Africa. Right. Not only the African countries in the continent, but every country where there is a person of African descent will be part of that sixth region. So this is a reality, and it's a great day for Africa, and we all should celebrate without forgetting the problems, but we know that we have gone a long way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Today is all about Africa, African unity. So what do you think is the importance of this day?
I think it's critical that we celebrate the achievements we have had as an African continent and as African people all over the world. So celebrating today brings the community of diplomats, politicians, and community people together to recall and to celebrate again the great force and power that Africa is, as well as to recommit ourselves, as one of my colleagues from Brazil said, to recommit ourselves to Africa's advancement.
Absolutely. How do you think we can strengthen the relationship between Africa and the Caribbean?
Well, we are doing so here at United Nations, as I said, by working together on many common themes. In particular, we are working to create a memorial to the victims of slavery and the slave trade. And that will be a world center erected here at the United Nations, in which we hope millions and millions of people of all races will come to recall the common trauma suffered by Africa and the Caribbean through slavery.
That's very important. Thank you very much for joining us today. How powerful do you think a united Africa will be?
I think a united Africa would change the foundation of relationships of nations in the world. A united Africa, matter of fact, I am shocked at this very moment as we're doing this interview that the African Union hasn't declared war on the invaders into Africa. I know that's a pretty controversial comment, but I am just shocked. I mean, already the world, the European Union and NATO have all said that they don't care about the African Union's roadmap to peace. That shows you what happens when you don't have African unity. If you had African unity, I think Africa would have solved these problems that we face right now. The wealth of Africa would serve the people of African descent and African ascent. It would serve the people of the world, and not just major corporations. So I think that that's what African unity really has to be about. It has to be improving the life of humanity, especially those people of Africa. And if we don't arrive at it soon, we will see a colonialism that's worse than the colonialism that came as a result of the carve-up of Africa. And we'll see a slavery worse than the slavery that we experienced for 300 years with the transatlantic slave trade.
Very interesting. Looking into the future, what role do you think the youth of Africa today can play in this unification that you're talking about?
I think the youth of Africa have been ready for a long time to play any role they're called upon. What I think that they're missing is an honest intelligentsia of professionals and intellectuals that are honest and want to serve the people instead of their individual selves. If they serve the youth are ready. The youth always stand ready. They're the ones who really make the change, but what they're making the change for depends on their relationship to the intelligentsia and how well the intelligentsia has informed them.
Looking at African countries right now and their relationship with Jamaica, how do you hope to strengthen that relationship as the ambassador?
Because it's not just Jamaica and Africa. Remember now, Jamaica and CARICOM countries have a history, they have a presence amongst the leaders in Africa. Because if you go back and look at it during the 1970s, during the liberation struggles, Jamaica and CARICOM were at the forefront of support and solidarity with these countries. And just to remind that on the eve of Zimbabwe's independence, you had a former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Michael Manley, and Bob Marley, who were specially invited. So Jamaica is felt in the heart of Africa.
Yes.
And after all, that's our ancestry, that's our ancestral home.
So today is all about African unity. What do you think is the importance of the continent of Africa uniting?
There's so many opportunities from what I read from history. I haven't been there yet, plan to go. But if they can unify and work together for the prosperity of all, instead of falling for the bad history of one or two dictators that's been controlling the resources and thereby causing so much harm, the unity would mean so much. It sends a message throughout the world that they are ready to do business in a way that promotes longevity and prosperity for their people.
Awesome. One last question, Mayor. This is a great time for Africa considering what has been happening in Egypt and other countries. So what role do you think the youth of Africa today can play in the unification of Africa?
By learning from their history and not making the same mistakes. To unify, to treat each other as brothers, not enemies. I think that's what this young generation can bring, and thereby it will stabilize itself. The resources there are tremendous, but it's just been squandered in many ways, and I think this younger generation could make a difference.
The theme for this year's Africa Day is Africa and the diaspora. What comes into mind when you hear that?
Well, Africa can't build itself without all his children together. So we have to take it from Africa to here, from here to Africa, in terms of getting together. The most important thing to do in this case, in this day here today, is getting together. When we talk about the diaspora, the African diaspora is very important in terms of development in Africa.
Right.
Very, very important. So this day here, when we talk about the diaspora, is the occasion for us to know each other, to see what can we do together in terms of implementing the different development programs we might have to help Africa, to take itself in charge, create a job, new jobs in Africa, and by the way, create also new jobs in the United States.
All the way from Angola, what brings you guys here today?
Our main aim was to come and meet the UN headquarters. Once we are international relations students, so the teacher thought that it would be better if we come here and see how the UN really works.
Okay.
Not only on the papers, we have like a practical, experience.
Right.
Like would be a very good experience for all us all.
Absolutely.
And we are not. We brought a big group, not only international relation
So
students.
it's a bunch of you coming from the
Yes,
university.
we also got like computer science here. Some of them who really wanted or were interested in knowing how the UN works.
Amazing. So as an international relations student, what role do you hope to play in African affairs in the future?
Oh, in African affairs, this would be will be a very long journey to work so, but we are hoping, especially to work with the African Union,
right,
to stop our main aim. Most of us, we all debate about is the conflicts, man, and it's a lot. It's a lot. We wish to stop this, as we have a lack of people fighting for AIDS. We want to focus also on something else, that is corruption, and arms struggling. We want to stop it's a big
yes,
problem,
and yes, we can. The future belongs to us young Africans. Is that right?
Sure.
Right. Thank you guys so much for joining me.